Hello, everybody. I'm Michael Monaco.
And I'm Bobby Salveson, and we are the Hazmat Guys, bringing you the knowledge and insight to make your job a little bit easier.
Before we get into the show, let's thank today's sponsors. For 30 years, first responders have trusted FLIR's Identifinder radiation security products to keep them safe. From PDRs to portals, FLIR delivers leading-edge solutions. Enter for your chance to win a new R100 PDR at FLIR.com/winR100.
The Hazmat Guys podcast is brought to you in part by Qualtech. Qualtech's radiation safety services support all of your rad needs. Our complete instrument service program includes calibration, repair, and tracking software, so your instruments are always ready. Learn more at Qualtech, that's spelled QALTEK.com, or 208-523-5557.
Welcome back to episode 63. We are on the top 5 chemicals that will hurt you today.
Oh, that sounds very scary.
It is.
It's very doomsday. I should put some really haunting music behind this. We are going to get right into this thing because this is a rather short one. It's just some statistics that we brought out. But I just would like to talk about a couple places that we are already booked for. It is January 11th as of this actual date of recording right now. And we are already confirmed for the New York State Symposium. I don't know what they're calling it, actually.
I believe it is a symposium.
Which is at the New York State Fire Academy, which I'm very excited for. Going to hang out with some of the people I work with up there. And also, we were just confirmed for the International Association of Fire Chiefs in Baltimore and Cold Zone with our pal Chuck and Mike up there.
Where is Cold Zone?
I think it's in Wisconsin. Oh, man. Now you put me on the spot. Hold on a second.
It's someplace really cold.
Yeah, it's May 10, 11, 12. It is in Minneapolis, Minnesota. But it's in May.
That's like in May. So it's for them it's like spring.
Oh, it's beautiful.
For us it's like dead of winter.
Right. Right, exactly. So we're going to bundle up and hopefully we'll have a good time. But they say they have a lot of beer and hockey games, so that's should be fun.
Can't beat that.
No, it sounds good. So you know what? Do you want to give props to the people that the lady that helped us very nicely?
For this episode?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's Aaron. I can't say the name.
We'll click on that.
I'll leave it.
All right. So, do you want to give a little props to the lady that helped us very nicely with this?
With this episode?
Yes, please.
Absolutely. All right. We've got, let's see if I can, I'm going to mess this name up. I know it. All right. Correct me.
Okay.
Aaron Anderson.
Yes. From the CDC.
I got it right. All right. There's an A and a Y and an A, and it always messes me up. She's from the Center for Disease Control. She's with the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. I didn't even know that they had this.
Yeah.
All right. This is huge kudos to her, mainly for the reason that we are just essentially giving you her report.
Right.
All right, we're paraphrasing some of the stuff and kind of bringing you the interesting points. But if this has any interest to you whatsoever, I highly recommend that you go because the actual report has got a ton of data on it.
Yeah, we're going to put the actual link for this report, which is very interesting, in the show notes. But what we're talking about here is, statistically speaking, what are the top 5 chemicals that you're going to do we'll start that one, that is going to do damage to you, the responder, or the people that handle them on a regular basis. So in reality, this is kind of made for us as the responders and also people that work in the buildings, people that are in the transportation industry, people that are basically in the mix from from the born on date to the expiration date, basically.
Right. Cradle to grave, right?
Cradle to grave. That was what I was looking for, but I was trying to
grave. That's
it is. That's perfect.
So let's talk about a little bit of time span involved with this study.
Okay.
She did everything from the years 1999 to 2008.
Okay.
All right. And what this actually covered was injuries from acute chemical incidents over 9 states. So it's not a study that studies the entire United States, but if you're into statistics at all, you know you can take a sample and derive a larger picture from that sample. So 9 states, almost a 10-year period, What did she have to say?
All right, so just to clarify what we're actually talking about, because this is what kind of stuck in my head as soon as I said, well, over 9 states. What 9 states? This is any incident, and what she criteriated an acute incident. It was anything that was less than 72 hours in duration. So that starts it off as, I think, is a very long incident, but, these could be some sizable incidents. So 72 hours or less. And the states that we're going to be referring to are Colorado, Iowa, Minnesota, New York, North Carolina, whoop, whoop, North Carolina, Oregon, Texas, Washington, and Wisconsin.
I wonder if there was any, I would love to know what her reason for selecting those states was. I mean,
Maybe.
Is that about as random across the board? Is that like where you didn't clump it together? Because if you look at them, it seems like it is pretty well across the country.
I think it was both geography and also the fact that they turned in their numbers, because some of these states don't have fiscal years end on March or whatever. They didn't coincide with her report. So I think that was mostly why she did that. I'm assuming, but that's what it kind of seems like.
All right. There's the Toxic Substance Control Unit that she's part of, right? Their inventory covers something like 84,000 chemicals that are buzzing around the commerce world.
That's amazing. And of these, all right, so she cataloged 57,975 incidents that were reported. And of those, 95% of it, 54,989, involved only one chemical.
That's insane.
So there was no mixtures. There was no mixing. They were not combinations of chemicals, in the same shipment. It was basically a single chemical involved in the incident.
There are over 57. There's almost 58,000 instances.
Right.
And she only covered stuff that lasted less than 72 hours.
Right. It's amazing. The numbers are crazy.
That is absolutely crazy. All right, so what do we got? We have essentially a breakdown of these top 5 chemicals.
Okay.
I am sure that a couple of these that nobody's going to be shocked at. Like, for example, carbon monoxide.
Yeah, that's a gimme.
All right. Carbon monoxide, obviously, not obviously, but if I were to take a guess as to what would be the most commonly, chemical, it would be carbon monoxide, mainly because you find it in houses and cars. So much, everything that gives off combustion gives off carbon monoxide, and combustion is such a huge part of our everyday life, so it makes sense. And within these states and in this time period, there was 2,364 carbon monoxide.
Right.
The next one up is ammonia at 1,153. Chlorine at 763, which actually kind of surprises me. Because chlorine is not used that much in everyday life. I know that it's a big industrial chemical, but you just don't see it that often, not as much as you do carbon monoxide.
Well, I'll explain that in a minute. Go ahead.
Okay. And hydrochloric acid at 326 and sulfuric acid at 318.
All right. The reason why carbon monoxide and ammonia were by far, carbon monoxide and ammonia caused by far the most injuries, deaths, evacuations, et cetera. Well, chlorine was not even in the top 10 chemicals released. However, it was in the top 5 chemicals associated with injuries because of just its properties. So it's why
such a badass,
right?
Just the littlest amount.
It wasn't. Boom. It wasn't one of those ones that is going to give you the big releases. It's not statistically one of those, but because of how badass it is, it hurts you bad. It gets you right away. So that's why it made this list. So
it's just not the quantity. It's kind of a mix between what is out there and what will actually hurt you.
Right.
Because every year, thousands of chemicals are manufactured, right? They're transported across the entire of the United States.
Right.
All right. And as the use of the chemicals increases, so does the likelihood of an unintentional release.
Right. And just to give you another number, a total of 13,196 people were reported to have been injured in a single chemical release.
Wow.
13,000.
Do we know what that chemical was?
No, because I'm going to stay away from that one chemical. No, I don't know what it was.
I'm gonna check my Tier 2 report and make sure that chemical is nowhere near me. The release of carbon monoxide results in high numbers of injured person, right? 2,364. It's also the largest number of incidences that required an actual evacuation, which was 222.
Right.
Again, makes total sense.
Now, here's another interesting fact, that the majority of the top 5 chemical releases occurred in a fixed facility. 70 to 90% of them happened in a fixed facility. I would have thought it would have happened over the roadway because, dumb drivers, not the truck drivers. These guys are professionals, and I give them kudos, even though they get into some pinches sometimes. More often than not, it's not their fault. It's some knucklehead that doesn't like driving next to tractor trailers, and he cut to the wall, and they get pinned, blah, blah. Most of the time, I can see them not being at fault. I'm surprised it's not like a 50-50.
Yeah, I would think with all the, you think about all the crap that can go wrong when you're taking a chemical, packing it in a tube, and sending it across the country at 55 miles an hour.
Right.
that not more stuff goes wrong. All right, so if the majority of the chemicals are at a fixed facility, what's the frequency of stuff that's traveling?
Well, chemicals, the highest frequency released during transportation was hydrochloric acid and sulfuric acid. That was 30% and 15% respectively.
So of the stuff that spills, the hydrochloric acid, the sulfur, that provides 30 and 15. All right, that makes sense.
Which, now, and again, it doesn't say quantity, concentrations or anything like that, but it seems that acid spills are the most. I was surprised by that. Now, gasoline, I'm going to say, is the most quantity. I'm just guessing at this, is the most quantity of releases. Right. I can count in a week a dozen releases of gasoline, right? It's so common, we don't even talk about it anymore. But those are not going to make this list because it didn't hurt somebody.
Right. So I wonder, like hydrochloric acid and sulfuric acid, there's some kind of a spill and people just don't know what it is, and then they end up getting it on them?
Yeah, we're going to give a quick refresher so that people know what these things kind of are, what they use for towards the second half of this thing. But yeah, I think it's just not knowing. And acids, are one of those ones where you touch it, it immediately hurts, which is good for the idiot factor. The bases would be a little bit worse because they wouldn't know, and then they go have the ham sandwich and the cigarette, and meanwhile their hands turning to putty. So I guess it's just not knowing.
All right, so we got fixed facilities, we have transportation. Of all this, how does the actual equipment failure play a role? Because this happens sometimes too. Like it's not an accident of anyone's fault. It just shit happens. Things break, and all of a sudden you got stuff going out there. So was there any kind of a breakdown as far as equipment failure?
All right. The most commonly reported contributing factor was equipment on ammonia, carbon monoxide, and sulfuric acid. Now, the ammonia was 46%. The carbon monoxide is 45%. And the sulfuric acid release was 41%. They're all kind of tight. That's the amount of equipment failure for those.
See, that boggles my mind. If you were to turn around and ask me, okay, what do you think it is? I would have probably said, all right, sulfuric acid, probably around 10%, ammonia, probably around 40%, and then I would have given like carbon monoxide 50%.
Oh, I would have said carbon monoxide way up there because
way up there,
dude. Think about it. When was the last time you went out and bought a cylinder of carbon monoxide?
Right.
You don't transport carbon monoxide. It's a byproduct of combustion. So, in my mind, it's going to be the furnaces, the hot water heaters, all that other jazz. So we have generators in our houses, in our businesses. Basically, anything that produces this crap can be used for it. The fact that it's an equipment failure makes sense to me. The furnace screwed up, the flue screwed up, a scroll went down the chimney. I understand that. The sulfuric acid and the ammonia, that's kind of surprising.
Yeah, it's very surprising. So if we have the equipment failure, is there anything that's kind of like a human error factor?
Okay, so this is, again, we're going to get into what it actually means, but HSEES is...
mistakes by people.
Right. Mistakes by people. That's basically a human error. Chlorine and hydrochloric acid. 37% for chlorine and 41% for hydrochloric acid. That's a lot. So is it and again, you can go down this rabbit hole forever, but is it improper training? Is it improper equipment? Is it improper regulations? And again, we're going, and we've been talking about this for a little while, but we just finished up setting up the interview with a very intelligent guy that works for the National Fire Academy that's going to be going over hazmat codes, specifically the NFPA 704 and fixed facilities. This guy is the bomb. And I'm going to hit him with a couple of these questions of how is this possible?
Right. What happens to do that? You know what's so funny? The things that the government does, everything that in our world, and the more we dive into this, the more mind-boggling this gets. Literally everything has got a very defined standard to it.
Right.
And like a very defined definition. The word human error actually falls into that category as well. All right. There's this thing called the HSEES.
Right.
All right. The Hazard Substance Emergency Event Surveillance System. And they actually define what human error is.
It's brilliant.
Like
it's brilliant.
they're so complete on some things, and then the government is so incomplete on others. It just boggles my mind.
Now, ammonia releases had a high percentage at 16%. This is a little bit surprising to me. That involved intentional or illegal acts due to the illegal methamphetamine production. So now me and Mike have seen this quite a few times where they have converted a 20-pound propane cylinder into an ammonia cylinder. And we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but what I'm saying is that if you see those brass fittings that are turned blue because of a change in the metallurgy of that brass, I would be very, very cautious of that because it will corrode and eat the tank. Basically, from the fittings to the tank itself, it does not play well with those metals. So when you see that, that's one of those back up and get out of this. But that's a high percentage of releases that are because of that illegal methamphetamine production. If you haven't seen it, I would definitely take a second, look up ammonia tank conversion propane, and you'll see pictures. Put them in your mind.
You got, if you don't know what that ammonia tank looks, if you don't understand what we mean when Bob says corroded fittings.
Oh,
all right. If you're sitting there and in your mind you're picturing a red, rusty, iron corroded fitting, then you really need to go look it up.
Yeah.
Because it looks nothing like what you would think of like a rusty tool. But I guess they turned around, and every time one of these methamphetamines release something, that kind of counts as a release. Which, I don't know. Is that human error?
I guess so. Intentional.
And 1/4 of all the 354 deaths during this time period were attributed to these 5 chemicals specifically.
Wow. 25% of the 354. That's a lot. These are the ones, guys, that you want to really put into your mind as the ones you want to focus on. Don't get crazy. Stick with the top 5 statistics. So let's take a moment to hear about today's sponsor. Thanks, guys. FLIR, a global leader in CBRNE detection solutions, has exciting news for Hazmat Nation. FLIR is giving away one of its new Identifinder R100 personal radiation detectors each month in 2017. Enter for your chance to win at FLIR.com/winR100. This rugged PRD delivers immediate threat alarms to keep frontline responders safe. It also features integrated Bluetooth connectivity that enables situational awareness beyond the front line and up the chain of command. It is IP67 rated to protect against dust, is water submersible up to 1 meter, and drop test compliant to 1.5 meters. For over 30 years, first responders have trusted FLIR's Identifinder radiation security products to keep them safe and prepared. Over 20,000 instruments are fielded globally. From personal radiation detectors to portals, FLIR delivers leading-edge solutions for our first responders. Remember to visit FLIR.com/winR100 to win.
All right, let's pick up where we left off. Let's start off with carbon monoxide. Brief little history on it. Hopefully, if you're listening to this, you know something about carbon monoxide. But if you're brand new to this whole thing, hey, CO is an odorless, colorless gas that causes sudden illness and death. All right, we said before that CO fumes are created during combustion, and they build up in enclosed or semi-enclosed spaces. So like a basement, an attic, a garage, inside of a building. The most common symptoms of CO poisoning are going to be headaches, dizziness, weakness, nausea, vomiting, chest pain, confusion. Really, really, really high levels of CO inhalation can cause loss of consciousness and death.
Though this wasn't part of this whole segment here, where are you going to monitor for this? Because you said the basement, is this one of those lighter than air, or is it one of the sinking ones? And people always go, I love watching people monitor for CO. They hold it waist high, and it works. But in all reality, it's so close to like the air weight. It's 0.97.
Right. It depends on a lot of factors. Like, for example, when we see carbon monoxide in a fire, a lot of times it somehow drops down into the basement.
Right.
But people say, how the hell does the carbon monoxide get into the basement? Well, it's all relative to that density is measured at standard temperature and pressure. So if you've got a fire and some craziness happens, and now that fire is much, much lighter than the carbon monoxide that's at a lower temperature, it's going to sink down. Yeah. So you really do have to check everywhere. Listen, I'm not a real big fan of looking at the density of a vapor and going, okay, we have to measure up higher, we have to measure down low. Because in reality, there's air currents and movements, and people are moving around. Thermal conductivity. There's like what were those lamps? Lava lamps.
Yes, it looks like a lava lamp.
Like a lava lamp,
exactly.
Right? You can have something heat up, move up, rise, drop. You could have stuff that's up high, cool off, drop.
You open the door, we walk through.
The wind, all these things change it. So, I know there's some people that are like die hard. It says it's twice as heavy, or it's a quarter heavier than air, so it's going to be on the ground. It's like, not necessarily. No. You really need to check everywhere.
In all reality, and I know this is a very bold statement to say, but it's going to be pretty close, with the exception of those really drastic, like 4 times the density of air. That's going to be pretty close to the floor. I mean, that's going to be on the floor. But with the exception of those, like helium and something that's super heavy, it's going to be so mixed in a room. It's going to be homogeneous. Wherever the hell you monitor, you're going to get a good beat of it.
Yeah, you're going to get something. So a prime example is the Phoenix, that famous Phoenix McDonald's CO2, right? CO2 is much, much heavier than air, yet it essentially filled up the entire room. The entire room was filled with CO. It wasn't just concentrated down at the bottom. It was everywhere in that basement.
Another one is hydrochloric acid. So hydrochloric acid is clear, colorless solution of hydrogen chloride and water, pretty much. All right, it's very corrosive, and depending on, again, we don't want to go down this, but depending on the concentration or the molarity of it, it can be anywhere from something weak, like a strong mineral acid, like a muriatic acid, all the way up to the mega stuff, which is like, we actually just went on a field trip and we looked at nitric acid at 19%, and that was still enough to make a nitrile glove smoke. However, it didn't go on fire, which was nice. The guys really wanted to see that. Hydrochloric acid is used in the manufacture of fertilizers, dyes, ore refining, rubber, and pickling of metal, which I've never heard of pickling of metal. Hydrochloric acid is a corrosive to human tissue, and upon exposure, it can cause harm to respiratory organs, eyes, skin, and intestines irreversibly. Because of the majority of the injuries reported in hydrochloric acid releases, they occurred in transportation and warehousing. People who worked in this industry, you got to be aware of the dangers that are associated with the chemicals that they're transporting and how reactive they are.
Hydrochloric acid. When do we see that the most in the city?
Hydrochloric acid. I don't know. I've seen it in so many, just in industry. I'm going to say in industry.
Is
that what you're looking for?
As muriatic acid, when they're doing
the bricks?
The bricks, the cleaning of the bricks. This always seems to happen like around springtime, summertime. People want to get the front of their bricks cleaned off, and this is literally what they do. They spray hydrochloric acid on the bricks, and then they power wash the crap off.
Yep.
And inevitably, somebody touches something and gets burnt, and then there's some chief who's bugging out that there's acid being sprayed on a building, and it becomes this whole Magilla gorilla. So that's where I've seen the hydrochloric acid the most.
Yeah.
All right, next up on our list is battery acid. All right, sulfene acid, hydrogen sulfate. All right, these are all different names for sulfuric acid. It is essentially a clear, colorless, kind of an oily liquid, but it is really corrosive. I once was swapping out a battery in a boat before they were sealed them better, and I kind of tipped it over, and a little bit dribbled out onto my shirt, onto my belt, and onto my crotch as I was walking. I put it down. I didn't end up getting burnt, but within a couple hours, I looked down, and my belt had completely disintegrated. It completely popped off. Like it was a leather belt, and it just was gone. It was crazy. That was my first experience with like real sulfuric acid. I think I was in like 8th grade. I had no idea. I'm like, why is my belt like this? My father's like, you're an idiot. Anyway, outside of batteries, all right, it's used to manufacture fertilizers, explosives, other acids, glue. It's also used in the process in which they purify petroleum. All right. Again, it's used in pickling metal, which is a technique used to allow the metal to be eaten for a long period of time. And, of course, lead acid batteries, which is how we are most familiar with the sulfuric acid on car accident scenes and things like that. Because of the corrosivity of this product, sulfuric acid at high concentrations can cause really, really, really bad chemical and thermal burns. All right. Sulfuric acid can burn corneas, and it will absolutely 100% lead to blindness if it's splashed in your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like some really, really, really serious stuff. All right. That HSEES database, all right, the most commonly reported industry for sulfuric acid injuries was manufacturing, and these incidents had a high frequency of equipment failure, which makes sense because sulfuric acid is so nasty that if your equipment is not maintained through this entire process, the sulfuric acid, like nitric acid, is going to cause equipment failure.
Right. It corrodes things. That's what it does.
It's what it does.
It does it for a living.
Right. These industries, they have to constantly be swapping out their metals, constantly swapping out grommets and gaskets and all these other things. And if they don't do it in time, it leads to equipment failure.
Right. And so now I know somebody's going to be asking it, how do they contain it if it goes through metal? Well, they contain it either in poly or stainless, depending on the chemical that they use. In fact, I think nitric is put into stainless steel casks, and I think the sulfuric is in a poly drum, and it's specific to the acid or chemical. Now, another one is chlorine. Now, chlorine is a toxic gas with an irritating odor, and because it is heavier than air, it tends to accumulate at the bottom of like poorly ventilated spaces. So it's more of a heavier gas. But again, don't take that for granted, because if it's hot out and there's thermal layers that are flying around, or there's a little bit of wind or whatever it is, it might not be what you think. So at low levels of exposure, let's say like less than 15 parts per million, nose, eye, throat irritation can occur. You're right. You're going to get that whole sludgeum thing. Now, immediate chest pain, coughing, changes in breathing rate, and vomiting happen at only 30 parts per million, and lung damage at 60. You get a blast at 60 parts per million, you're probably not going to be running marathons anymore.
You're done. It's like throwing a steak on a hot cast iron pan.
Oof.
It just a second and it's seared.
It's done. So after a few minutes at 1,000 parts per million, death. That's guys. That's low level stuff. The IDLH of this is really low. This is one of those ones you want to really be careful of, because chlorine is very important in industrial chemical for the production of thousands of products. Think about it: vinyl chloride, PVCs, refrigerants. They're all chlorine based. Aerosols, silicones, foams. Chlorine's used in water disinfection for water treatment plants and swimming pools. Pulp, paper bleaching. Everywhere. All right. In 2012, a study was found that compared with chlorine releases in paper manufacturing, hydrogen peroxide had fewer injured person per release, with injured person and fewer injured persons for all releases. So I think they're kind of making a case for hydrogen peroxide, but that in itself is another badass. Super oxidizer, depending on its concentration and its orientation, right?
And
chemically.
Extremely unstable.
Oofa.
In higher concentrations, it goes after everything.
So just to finish this one up, because of equipment failure represented 37.1% of the incidents that resulted in chlorine releases, routine maintenance of equipment and engineering controls can and will reduce the failure and injuries.
Yeah, this just goes to show, I think, how much respect the industry has for chlorine. Because if you think about it, right, here you have this gas that's extraordinarily toxic, and it is generally contained under massive pressure.
Yep.
Right? Those 1-ton cylinders, they're liquefied. They're not cooled. They're under pressure. And I think it has a vapor pressure of like 33 atmospheres.
Right. It really wants to be a gas.
Right. So it's putting a lot of pressure on that container. So the fittings, the pipes, all the stuff that it goes through, it takes a good beating. So the fact that it's actually so common and the amounts of industries like proportionally are so low just shows that the industry as a whole has a tremendous amount of respect for this.
Yeah.
Did you ever see the Jackrabbit 2 videos? Do you know what the Jackrabbit is?
It sounds very familiar. Remind me.
So Jackrabbit and Jackrabbit 2 was this thing they did out in the desert, and I'm pretty sure it's been released, so I'm pretty sure I can talk about it, where they took essentially tractor trailers and rail cars. They built a fake town around the tractor trailer and the rail car, maybe out to like half a mile, and then they put sensors all over the place, boxes and houses and things, and they literally detonated a hole at the bottom of these tanks. So essentially a demonstrating a catastrophic release. And there was a catastrophic relief at the bottom of each of the containers, and you just see it hit the ground and just pour out and plume and go everywhere. And it was a really good example of, you got to see, because you can see the chlorine, you get to see how it's really concentrated at the ground, but yet as you move up, there's still a tremendous amount in the air up to a couple stories high. You know, within 30, 40 feet, you still see chlorine. It's not as dark as it is on the ground, but it is pretty high up. So if you want to see some really cool stuff, go YouTube Jackrabbit 2. I'm pretty sure it's out. If not, it will be out at some point. So just a little thing. All right, moving on. Let's move on to ammonia. A little bit different than the stuff that you spray in your windows, all right? That is a distilled ammonia. This is actual straight anhydrous ammonia, which is going to be a colorless gas with a really distinct odor. That is essentially what you smell when you're spraying the windows or cleaning the bathroom or trying to screw with somebody in the firehouse kitchen, all right? Medics use it as smelling salts, household cleaners, window cleaning products. So we kind of are a little familiar with the smell. You should at some point understand what it smells like. The stuff that we use in-house to clean windows, bathrooms, and things, that is a very little bit of ammonia that has been dissolved in water, which then we call liquid ammonia or aqueous ammonia. But once that stuff is opened up and exposed to the air, that liquid ammonia quickly turns into a gas, which is why you can open up the container and you're like, oh, oh man, it's like everywhere. Mm-hmm. All right. Exposure to high levels of ammonia can cause irritation and serious burns to the skin and mouth, throat, lungs, and eye. At very high levels, ammonia can cause, well, pretty much death. All right. A substantial number of incidents with injuries were caused by the illegal acts. All right. We talked about this before with the methamphetamines, people trying to steal the stuff. Some people just breaking other people's things. Most likely ammonia fertilizer tanks that are out everywhere in farmland. These meth people go and they try to siphon off of it. They try to fill their little fake propane ammonia cylinders with it. And there's a tremendous amount of injuries that come from that. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Hazmat Guys.
You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and our YouTube channel at The Hazmat Guys. And take a moment to call our comment hotline at 843-628-1484.
We are always looking forward to your feedback about information or interesting incidents that you were part of. So send us a note at feedback@thehazmatguys.com.
And remember, guys, don't just get on the job. Get into the job.